Have you ever desired something for so long and after attaining it had found no meaning in the experience or no fulfillment? This is something that I personally see for myself and for a lot of friends, a lot of people that I have around. And I think this is a great example of either external or internal hijacking. You see, as humans, we have many needs and it's very easy to hijack them. I think studying resources like the theory of human motivation by Abraham Maslow or self-determination theory and resources that are useful for you to understand yourself and also the external world are so important. This is because our society is becoming increasingly able to hijack your brain, your needs, but especially to crush your self-agency. By self-agency, I mean intentional, self-guided choice and action. And if a society is able to repress, to remove your independence in the terms of the choices that you make, the actions that you take, the behaviors that you have, I think you're gonna have a hard time to build a fulfilling human life. And so that's why I wrote about self-agency as a currency of life. It's one of the 6 most important currencies of life from my perspective, and I wrote about it for you and me. I wanna go into some of the details and some of the notes that I'll share with you on the screen. And there's also resources right below in the description that is sharing openly these other 5 life currencies. It's a metaphor and you should probably understand what I mean by that. It's something that you can accrue. In this case of the self-agency, it's going to be a bit different in terms of the definitions. So it's a bit insidious because when we talk about self-agency, we're trying to understand how intentional, independent and conscious choices we're making in our life. And again, as I said before, we have to be very, very careful with wording here. It's something that's very delicate because it's not completely blocking out signals from the external. That's why I talked about internal and external. There's an internal core and there's an external influence. And so self-agency is not focusing solely on a simple system, which is you and your brain and your thinking, which is already not a simple system, but also all of the other elements around it: people, culture, society, and so on. So you may think you have self-agency, but there are many projections influencing you. You might be in a cobweb without realizing it, and that's the trickiest part. We have to keep in mind we're social animals, and so the selective integration of others' input is crucial. So here I'm talking about, you have friends, you probably are listening to me because you care about maybe some interesting insight on needs and building a life that makes you feel fulfilled, right? So you're thinking about also inputs from the external, and that's what we mean by this. You need to be careful because external pressures can take over, and it's like I said before, a complicated, interconnected system, and there's you and the whole universe interacting, right? And again, as using the metaphor of currency, self-agency can be maximized, but it's more of a spectrum. So you can reach a high degree of freedom, meaning you can choose intentionally, guided by yourself, the actions, the choices and actions that you take, or you can completely be pulled from so many strings that you're stuck and trapped into somebody else's wants. So this is why I warned about society, the ability of capitalism in this case as a system to really leverage your most basic needs, especially those at the bottom of the hierarchy. I'll explain later. And so one of the most interesting insight I've had recently is that in connected to the other currencies of life, there is also knowledge. It's one of the, I believe, probably one of the core pillars of even byHumans and how I live my life. Gaining knowledge and gaining experience is one of the most important things I can do for myself. And so the deeper and the more authentic knowledge I gain and how you integrate and process it, the more likely you are of holding strong to your truth, principles, priorities, so self-agency. So intentionality and self-guidance, I think, come down from your belief system. Let's call it operative system, your OS. So the software in your brain. You have a core in your mind of truths, beliefs, a belief system, and even priorities. So if we have them clear, at least in a moment in time, and in a progressive way, we can keep self-agency because we can be intentional towards them. With self-guidance, understanding where we want to go. To share with you a personal story, it's something that has enabled me to live a higher level, a consistent higher level of quality of life and meaning extracted out of life has been self-agency, being able to choose on my own, guided by my core system, which I've just talked about. And the more knowledge you gain, the more pure is the form of self-guidance, I personally believe. And again, this creates the best scenario for directed awareness. So you spend properly the most scarce resource in your life, which is attention. So if you see my drawing here, this on the left should be a lens, even if it's not very clear, I know. And the element on the right is an object, okay? And the awareness is the lens, and looking through the lens is directed awareness. So looking through the lens is attention, but directed awareness is putting a very narrow focus of attention on the object. What I'm talking about here, and what I want to make you perceive, is that the more knowledge you gain, the more you can direct awareness, at least from my understanding of my brain and how I think, because you're able to choose the object in a more clarified form, so you can narrow the focus of the lens. It's like you have the light shining through the lens. It's very narrowly focused. I don't know if that's the right term. Narrowly focused on the awareness. Sorry, on the object. So gaining knowledge, the purest it is from your experience, from curiosity, from exploration, the more you can direct awareness, which is how you can spend properly the most scarce resource you have, which is attention. So in the document, there are some notes about attention, which is time spent on something. I don't want to go too deep into this, but what I mean is that self-agency is very deeply intertwined with knowledge, because the more knowledge you gain about yourself and the exterior, so the outer world, the more you can understand really what you believe to be true. What is your belief system? What are your principles and priorities? And so with this, you can direct awareness into object of your interest. Okay, so you can spend the time, so you can use your attention as a currency on the object that you're really interested on. Let's say, for example, to give you some reference here, I personally see a lot of young guys, a lot of young males, really heavily focused on money making and doing something awesome in terms of opportunity for their financial life. This is great. I'm not saying this is bad by any means. What I'm saying is that there is a very heavy pressure from other people, from our culture, to make the most amount of money, because that's how we perceive, we follow wealth, power, and prestige. So we're seeking for wealth because of our current culture, power because we want to feel powerful, and prestige because we want to be prestigious. And this falls back to the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs. So we want to be very careful with the object where we are directing our attention to, because attention is very scarce, and if we use it on something, on an object, for example, accruing wealth, where we can't extract a lot of meaning just simply from extracting wealth, we have to be careful. So with more knowledge, I believe you create a favorable context for self-agency to direct your life. But the skill of truly understanding what is an external influence, like pendulums, projections, and pressures, is incredibly rare. This is the cobweb that makes you feel like you're free, but you aren't. So people selling you how to make money and how to build your life, and you don't even question it. Maybe there's truth to it, but be very careful. People that tell you you need to be this, you need to be that, and projecting on you, or your societal pressure, peer pressure, family pressure. Remember, again, you have to free up of this cobweb of influence and really go and back to the basics. And understanding you are the individual with most context to direct your life and choices is the key, I believe, to achieving more self-agency. So making decisions mainly for yourself with marginal trusted support. You go back to your truth, principles, priorities. They should guide you first. Then there's a layer down. People that understand you can hint a direction, so they can leave golden nuggets for you. Mentors, friends, coaches, and family members, your partner. They can give you these small nuggets and hint a direction, especially if they deeply understand you. They know what's in your mind, and that you talk with them frequently. But then there's below projections of the family. There are people that are secondary in your life that are casting on you expectations. And then peer or societal pressures that are mostly to be ignored from my experience, of course. And to build a life that gives you meaning, that is fulfilling for you, getting back to the basics again and again, so questioning your truth, principles, and priorities, and going back to the loop, I think is one of the safest bets. This gives you responsibility. You have the maximum context. Sorry. You make the decisions. You question how and why you make decisions. Support and hints are accepted. Again, because we are in a complicated, interconnected system, but you eventually have the last say, control, so self-agency, because you're intentionally, with self-guidance, choosing the actions, like choosing and taking action, okay? Knowledge isn't enough, of course. It is an enabler of self-agency, and putting intention and guide yourself towards the right choices and action, like I was saying, is awesome. It's what I think will make a life worth living. The question now is, even if we already talked about it, how do I gain this damn self-agency? And we mentioned before, it's like a spectrum, unlike knowledge and attention. Knowledge can be stacked, and attention is very scarce and is kind of like given you every day. As you wake up, you have this amount of time, and so you can spend it as a bank account that recharges every day. To maximize self-agency means having high level of intention and guiding your own choices and actions. In a way, you take inputs from the external, but it has less of a major influence. Acquiring knowledge, learning deeply what's important to you, taking action with marginal support from the external, and keep refining your questioning is the loop. Try as much as possible to declutter before you can add, asking the question, is this principle, this truth, this belief truly mine? Always back to basics. And here, this is where I believe the interesting note that I gave at the intro about Maslow is important, because our society, we are in the context of capitalism. It's incredibly able to capitalize on your needs. And as Maslow said, man is a perpetually wanting animal. And this is exactly what feeds the machine. Capitalism has a god, which is profit. And to profit, it is very happy to hijack your needs. So it is very happy to enlarge them and make you feel like you actually need that, you need something more. But, and I think here it's worth mentioning, because I really read a lot about it on the School of Life very recently. There are some beautiful notes about this. Capitalism has really focused heavily on the lower hierarchy. Let me find the notes for you. Alain de Botton was saying, more efficiently than any other system, capitalism has, in theory, been able to identify what we're lacking and deliver it to us with unparalleled efficiency. Capitalism is the most skilled machine we have ever yet constructed for satisfying human needs. Yet, we are ceasing to buy quite so much for an understandable reason. We have all we need. Yet, despite its evident successes, consumer capitalism cannot in truth realistically be credited with having fulfilled a mission of accurately satisfying our needs. Because of one evident failing, we aren't happy. Indeed, most of us are, a good deal of the time, properly at sea, burdened by complaints, unfulfilled hopes, barely formulated longings, restlessness, anger and grief, little of which our plethora of shops and services appear remotely equipped to address. And I really love this. This part is saying what's surprising is how little consumer capitalism has until now been in any way ambitious about many of the things that deliver higher sorts of satisfaction. Business has helped us to be warm, safe and distracted. It has been markedly indifferent to our flourishing. This is the task ahead of us. The true destiny of and millennial opportunity for consumer capitalism is to travel up of the pyramid, to generate even more of its profits from the satisfaction of the full range of higher needs that currently lie outside the realm of industrialization and commodification. Capitalists and companies are seemingly, at least semi-consciously, aware of their failure to engage with the many of the elements at the top of the pyramid. Among them, friendship, belonging, meaningfulness, and a sense of agency and autonomy. So it's a circle back. It's a dog eating its tail. Because we're focusing too much on these lower levels, physiological, safety, and we're not focusing, I think, enough on love and belonging, esteem, and especially self-actualization. I think we're heavily hijacked by society. And circling back to my notes again, I wanted to wrap it up. You need to protect yourself from the external influence, and you need to deeply understand this hierarchy. And as you can see here, we have a bit of a more nuanced article on the hierarchy of needs. But as you can see, we mentioned about the physiological, the safety, and the belonging. You can read through them, but they are just the most basic needs. And as it's a complicated system, and you will have more needs competing with each other, we are too much on the deficiency needs. capitalism really wants to be below because this is how they can extract the most profit. We keep staying in that negative section, the deficiency needs. So if we have a low self-esteem, if we don't belong, if we don't have love around us, if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel physiologically okay, we will be perpetually in need of these basic elements, and so we won't be able to embed meaning, to create meaning, actualize ourselves, and so go on the growth needs, something that is forward oriented. And that's where the more you're hijacked from others on the efficiency needs, the harder it will be to live a fulfilling human life, because you won't be in control. And I wanted to share with you these notes, as I see a lot of people feeling they're not hijacked and they're intentionally going in their direction. But again, even capitalism has you, probably even me. I tried to really rewire my brain and to go deep into my truths, principles, and patterns, priorities, and to find the source code, the operative system, and it's very hard. But again, I really see too much influence by other external factors on that. So we talked about the definition of self-agency. We talked about how to get self-agency. We talked about some of the resources and knowledge that you can gain in order to get self-agency, in order to build a better life. But I think some key points to remember are reviewing your operative system, so your brain, your core beliefs, and all that is within you, so you can review and expand a pillar. Imagine, as a metaphor, your self-agency. There's the core inside of you, which is the operative system, which is expanding, and as you get stronger and you get more intentional and you guide yourself on choices and action, the wider this kind of core is. But at the end, you need to gradually, this is from personal experience of course, find marginal support from the external, because you will need less and less from the external and more from within the more you get to know yourself and the world. And I think this is a direction to strive towards. So pardon my mistakes if I've made some of them. I have some notes here, probably some mistakes in references, or I haven't been too scientific. But I believe this is something that I can keep doing. I wanted to share a series of notes on Currencies of Life. This is the one of self-agency, which will probably update, and I can embed into them a more personal stories. But I hope you found some insight and some new knowledge that you can get within your core and your operative system and start doing that process, so you can start being more intentional and self-guide yourself towards choices and actions that are giving you, embedding more meaning into your life. That's all I want. That's all I care about. And that's why I've made this resource. So go below the description. There is the document in Notion. You can look at also the other currencies of life, and I'll make a series out of this. And I hope I inspired you to look a bit deeper and to ask the right questions for your life. I root for you, and see you in the next episode of the series.